average 8A contractors making a little over $6 million a year, with that certification. So it's the best. Unfortunately, most people don't qualify for it. Getting any cert that you can is going to help you. By that, I mean, those companies are all averaging, between 1.2 and 1.4 million a year through those certifications. And
all my amazing GovCon winners, you are in for another treat today. We have the one and only Mark Ryan, who's over Easy 8A and Advanced GSA. And he actually helped me get our 8A like over 9 years ago. I can't believe so much time has passed. And I'm so excited to have him here because he's going to talk about everything around set-asides. So Mark, welcome to the channel.
My pleasure. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you here. So please, for all of the amazing GovCon winners out there, please just dig in there and share, first and foremost, what is Easy 8A Advanced GSA? Please share with us, why do you guys even exist? Where did that come from?
That's a long question. I love it. I could talk about that for an hour. But, basically we're a firm that helps people out, so getting certifications and getting GSA scheduled contracts is complicated. And for most people, it's not worth their time to learn how to do it. You can spend 100 hours working on an 8A application, pay yourself minimum wage to do it and still get denied, or you can have somebody like us come in and do that. So really that's what it is. It's just to help people actually get through the process and get through it efficiently and ultimately get the contract at the end or get the certification at the end. So we've been around a long time. We've been doing it for about 18 years now, which is what I've been doing. So we work with a lot of companies. I do over a couple hundred certifications a year, a couple hundred 8As, and about as many GSAs. So I've seen it all. Worked with a couple thousand firms over the years, and I think I've seen wonderful success stories, and I've seen people come and go. I mean, by that I mean get certified, graduate, retire, sell their businesses. It's been a great journey, and neat to just see all the successes people have been able to have with government contracting.
Well, that's fantastic because it's pitched and put out there as like the same. So I've found that many people who are in the GovCon space, whether they're brand new or even if they have a contract or two, are under the belief, hey, I need to get an 8A, I need to be woman-owned, I need to be economically disadvantaged, I need to get this GSA thing. Like, what have you found that works best when it comes to the over 2,000 companies that you've served?
That's a hard question. It definitely varies, but for sure the 8A certifications, that's the holy grail of federal contracting. If you're minority owned and you can get 8A, no doubt, that's where you're going to drive the most value, the most benefit. The average 8A contractors making a little over $6 million a year in that, with that certification. So it's the best. Unfortunately, most people don't qualify for it. So, you have to be minority owned to get that. So then you're looking at where's the value for the rest of us. And, getting a GSA scheduled contract versus getting your veteran certification if you're a veteran versus getting hub zone certification, they're all about the same. By that, I mean, those companies are all averaging, between 1.2 and 1.4 million a year through those certifications. And I see them all being good tools, and they certainly vary based on what industry you're in and what you're doing. For example, if I'm a professional services company, I want my GSA. I don't care about hub zone for a whole lot. But if I'm in janitorial or construction or any sort of building maintenance or something, I want to get my hub zone. They're going to get a lot more value there. But, those three are kind of in that middle road. And then, the woman-owned I'd put at the bottom of the list. It's a valuable cert, but there's a lot of them. And, those companies are averaging, I think it's in the mid 400s. Certainly worth getting, and you can drive a lot of value from it. But for each person, you just have to look at what they can get and go after it all, ultimately. Getting any cert that you can is going to help you. Getting a GSA scheduled contract, if you're in an industry that can use it, is going to help you. So really, the process is usually look at a company and say, what all can you get, and get all of it. Obviously, you have lots of opportunities that come up during a year. By that, I mean the various GWACs and IDIQs that come out each year. Whenever one comes out, you want to evaluate it. And if you're a good candidate for it, you certainly want to jump on that as well. But in terms of certifications, you have 4 certs. Any of them that you qualify for, you absolutely want to have.
And some have this belief, and again, this is a lot of things that are just kind of pushed out there. Now, once you get the certification, like, all this work is going to come out, whether it's service disabled, it's HUBZone, it's woman-owned, it's 8A, that it's just magically going to like appear and bam, you're going to become really wealthy. Is that the case?
I wish it were. Wouldn't that be fun?
Ew.
I work for the SBA. I'm a subject matter expert for them on the 8A program. I do a lot of trainings for them. So the biggest trainings I do are for 8A companies. After you get 8A certified, the SBA gives you, there's a series of 14 trainings that you can take. I'm the instructor in about half of those trainings. And they're all kind of answering this question of what do I do? I've got my certification now. How do I be successful with it? How do I market it? How do I, become a successful federal contractor? So there's not a simple question to that or a simple answer to it, but ultimately the phone doesn't regularly just ring. And there's I did a white paper on this it's been a while ago, 6-7 years ago, but you can see when you look at the cross section of certified firms, how the bottom half of 8A firms are doing less than $500,000 a year in 8A revenue. I mean, it's anemic, it's nothing. And those are the firms that get the certification and don't market it, don't do anything, wait for their SBA representative, they call them business opportunity specialists, to put something in their lap, basically, to send out a source that saw it and you get lucky and the phone rings. You're going to get very little revenue doing that. The next quarter of 8A firms that are that 50 to 75% or almost $9 million a year on average, and the top 25% of 8A firms, this is about 3 years ago, was 17 point something million a year in revenue. So the folks that take the certification and market themselves and use it do extremely well with it. And the half that don't will drive no value from it. There's no, it's not it's not a silver bullet. It is a silver bullet that it gets you access to some really amazing sole source contracts and set-asides. But if you don't do anything with it, you're unlikely to have much success with it. So I could certainly talk about that process for a couple of minutes if you want me to jump into it. Yeah.
Yes, please. Everybody also wants to know about this.
How do you get it done? When it comes, and it's very different when we talk about the 4 different certifications that are out there. 8A is unique. That's why I call it the Holy Grail. It really is unique in that you can get the sole source, which completely changes the way you market an 8A firm versus marketing a HUBZone, woman-owned, or veteran firm. Those don't get set aside. So relationships are important, but they're not critical. What's critical is past performance and doing a good job and having good, CPARs and providing good value. Where 8A firms, the entire thing comes down to relationships and marketing. So when you get 8A certified, your goal isn't to go out to Sam.gov and put together great bids that provide value and are low cost and win those projects like it would be with the other certifications. Certainly with, woman-owned or HUBZone or whatever, you go out and find jobs that are set aside for woman-owned and bid on them, provide good value and, get some past performance and build your book of business from there. But with 8A, we don't at all want to do that. We want to identify an agency that is a good fit for us. And it's pretty easy to do that. You can go out to usaspending.gov and you can go to the SAM data bank and you can download all that data and look at it and say, okay, I'm providing professional services in Cincinnati, Ohio. All right, let me pull down every 8A contract that's been awarded in Cincinnati, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky over the last 3 years, and that are in my NACE code, and just take a look at it. And you're going to get an overwhelming amount of data. You get hundreds or thousands of contracts, but then you can start sorting it and saying, okay, which agency did the most. And typically, within, and it depends how good you are with databases and playing around with Excel and things, but within a couple hours, you should be able to identify, okay, Department of Interior, they've got a big office here in Cincinnati, and they're doing a fair amount of 8A work. That's where I should target myself. So ultimately, by looking at the data that's out there in the data bank, you should be able to identify just one or two, sometimes three agencies that are a good fit for you. And you get all their contact information on there, so once I say, okay, I want to go after Department of Interior, I can easily see, give me the name, email address, phone number of all of the contracting officers that have executed an 8A contract in the last 2 years. So that information is all in the data bank. It's not hard to get it. So I now have an agency that I know procures my service. They use a fair amount of it. They do it through the 8A program. And I've got the contact information for the people that, that are doing it. So that's kind of the first step, and this is all from the approach of somebody that is not currently doing federal contracting and has no relationships to start with. Obviously, this is the hardest case scenario. If you already have a relationship when you get 8A certified, that's the only thing you're going to focus on is the relationship you have and the agency that is with that relationship. So to get on just a side point for a second, very common that when I'm doing an annual renewal for a client, that they will have 70 to 90% of their revenue with one agency. So I was doing a renewal last week. The firm had $36 million in revenue, and a little over 30 of it was with the Army Corps. Very normal to see that kind of thing. Then they had a couple million in corporate work and a couple million with the Department of Forestry or some. Anyway, to see, so that's because 8A is relationship based. In the example I'm giving earlier, I get into the Department of the Interior, I do one job, I do a good job, that contracting officer likes me, they refer me to the other contracting officers that they know, which are of course in the Department of Interior, and it just builds on itself. So typically your successful 8As are working with just one federal agency or two, and they're building relationships within those agencies, getting confidence built up within those people within the agencies so that they want to sole source work to them. When that opportunity comes out, they have something they need done, they know they can just, call Mark Ryan at Easy 8A and, award him a sole source contract and get it done. So that's the goal, is to get in with an agency that's, it's a good fit for you, uses 8A, and then start building relationships within that agency. I get a fair amount of questions of how do I create that initial phone call or that initial connection. And that's a challenge. I've just kind of gone through this example where, maybe I've done my research and I've decided I'm going to go after the Department of Interior first and see if I get anywhere. And then if I don't, I'm going to give up and I'm going to go to the next best fit. But I'm going to try Department of Interior for a couple months before I quit and go on to the next one. I've got this list of 20 or 50 or 100 contracting officers, whatever it is. And yes, I'm going to start with that list. But before I even do that, I'm going to call the OSDBU office of the agency and see how they can help me. A lot of times, I say half the time, they're wonderful. They'll give you a meeting, they'll sit down with you, understand your capabilities, and they will at least act like they're going to make an effort to disseminate your information and, help make some connections for you. At the very least, you can almost always get a directory from them, which is fantastic, because half the time you only have somebody's name and email or name and phone. You don't have both. So anyway, we're going to start with the OSDBU office. We're also going to start by, Googling and getting any agency forecast that we can find. There's always an agency forecast out there. Sometimes they're a little old, they're new, great, but that'll give you a couple more places within the agency that maybe you want to be making some initial contacts with. Then we're going to start calling them. And I know it's hard. You call them, they don't answer. You leave a voicemail, they don't answer. So I get it. It's not uncommon to make 15 calls before I finally get the human. I'm not going to leave voicemails every time. Probably by the fifth or sixth call, I'm going to leave a voicemail. Then I'm going to try another 10 times or so. Eventually, I'm going to get the person. And then you have about 10 seconds to convince them that you're not a waste. So you're going to call them up and say, I'm Mark Ryan with Easy 8A. I see that you awarded this 123 contract to ABC company last year. That, it looks like it has to do with whatever. 8A Consulting is just exactly what we do. And I'd love to talk to you or the project manager about that, as we've been doing some neat stuff in that space, and, have some ideas of how we could potentially help that out. Or that does a couple things very quickly. It puts that contracting officer at the, right off the bat, okay, this person did not call and say, I'm Mark Ryan with Easy 8A, we're 8A certified, how can you help me? What do you have going on? What's coming up? That's like a disaster introduction. And I tell you that, and I hear it all the time, that's what people do. We're 8A, yeah, what do you got going on? Do you have any contracts? We do IT, and is there anything that maybe you could give us or talk to me about? And the person doesn't want to deal with you. They don't want to put their neck out for you, and you're clearly a novice. You know what you're talking about, and they just want to get you off So when you call up and you let them know, I'm not a waste of your time. I understand the contracts that are out there, and I see this one, and it's relevant, and it's relevant to me, and I know I can be helpful with it. And I'm telling you that I can provide value to your agency. Then they want to take that 5 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever it is, to tell you who you need to be speaking with. Because it's never them, it's almost always some program manager. Then ultimately, when they say, yeah, Bob handles that renewal, it's for his group, here's Bob's phone number, that's all you really wanted. Now you can call Bob up and say, Bob, all right, I'm awesome. We have some really innovative stuff in your space. I know you've got this contract coming up in, 6 months or a year, whenever it renews. And I'd love to talk to you about how we could help you with that. And by the way, we're 8A, so, you can be sure to actually get us. When it goes out for bid, you don't have to worry that you're going to get some other company. And then you're building a relationship with Bob, over the next 6 months. And ultimately, when he puts that, he puts those requirements back to the contracting officer to get it put out for bid, you're wanting him to shape it so that you're a good bidder on it. Or more importantly, you're wanting him to just ask the contracting officer to sole source it to you because you've convinced him about your ideas and he wants you. I know that first contract's tough, but putting the time in to get the relationships and to get the sole source will always be a better long-term value for you as a 8A certified firm. The companies that go out and do 10 different, that's a lot, let's say it's 6, 7, 8 different 8A contracts with 8 different agencies are rarely the ones that I see growing. That they're not developing relationships with those agencies. They're going off and doing a bunch of one-off contracts, and they're still beating their head against the wall 3 years later, putting out 30 bids a year to win 10. They're set aside 8A, but and yet they have a great win ratio. They're excited. They're winning 1 out of every 3, but they're not developing any relationships, and they're not getting the sole source work. When you're 8A, all you care about is sole source work. It's very efficient for you, and it's high margin, and it's replicatable. So I can tell you that top half of clients I have, all those clients that are doing 6, 7 million and more, it's all about getting into 1 or 2 agencies, doing a good job, building relationships, and using that network. So I did a renewal. It's probably been a couple months ago. Client was working with the CDC, doing about 20 million a year with the CDC, and a couple million a year outside of the government. But the CDC is his only agency within the government. And he said he's doing it all with just 2 contracting officers. It's 2 relationships. So relationships, man, that's the key. That really is the key to it when you have the 8A, when you have that holy grail. When you have the ability for a contracting officer to just award you a contract, you would need to take advantage of that. So that's the Cliff Notes version of, how to market yourself as an 8A when you don't already have those relationships.
Which is excellent because it reinforces the notion of you're creating your own ocean. And so when you create an ocean that's not bloody, you can charge more. They're going to want to come to you because they know, like, and trust you. And it's powerful to have 2 contracting officers under 1 agency opposed to constantly finding and going and bidding. And yeah, you win some, but as you said, they're one-offs. That doesn't make for a strong business model. I'm curious, while there's an application for all of these set-asides, what are some of the mistakes that you find business owners make during the application process, other than not hiring you? I mean, I was going to put that out there because remember, I hired
the obvious mistake,
and they got me my 8A over 9 years ago. I've since graduated, but and that's why I have Mark here, because it changed my life. And to your point, we had one major client. We have several now, but we had one major client during the 9 years.
Yeah, very common. You ask what the biggest or most common mistake is with the application. I don't know that there is one, other than just not respecting it. By that I mean, I get it. A lot of these people that start it and then hire us to finish it, because they get into it and realize, oh my God, this is overwhelming. So I see a ton of these people that get into it and kind of 80% do it and then submit it. And the SBA just destroys it. It comes back with 30 questions and just almost tears it up. So I guess being prepared to make the time commitment to do it is probably the biggest mistake. People think they can sit down and in a day or two do their 8A application. And it's not going to happen. If you're doing an 8A application without experience of doing them, you need to set aside a couple weeks to really understand what they're asking for and get all those appropriate documents together and get it to them. It's interesting how many denials I read a year. People get denied. They try to hire us to do the subsequent app. So I read a fair amount of denials, and I'd say 95% of those denials are denials that should not have happened, but the person didn't know how to present something and presented it in such a way that it was, they could not certify it. Most common thing would be having bylaws or operating agreement if you're an LLC that has funny language in it. They did funny. By funny, I mean, control language that the SBA is not going to allow. Language has control issues in it. So, or financial statements is another common one. They don't quite understand what the balance sheet is, but they printed it off and they put it in there. And they didn't realize that there was something on there that didn't follow proper accounting. And so the SBA reads it, denies the app, and says, your balance sheet has a negative number on it. There should never be a negative number on here for an asset. You're not following generally accepted accounting principles. We don't have confidence in your financials, so we're denying your app. Where, it's so easy to just not know. Submit something, and then you get a 6-month setback because you get a denial, and now you've got to redo the whole application and wait the 90-day waiting period. So I don't know. I don't know that I'd put it on any one thing, but
this is where I love to share one of my favorite kind of sayings, and that is penny wise, pound foolish. Where many go into this process thinking, oh, I can just contact my P-TAG or some local office, or I can just do it myself. And I get it. I'm not suggesting anybody go into debt or extreme debt. But when you go on this business journey as an entrepreneur, you have to invest. So this is an investment, so that don't submit something because you may not understand. That's why I hired them. I didn't understand half these things. I didn't know, and I didn't want to know. My expertise is not in applications, it's in doing the thing and selling. And so while it may seem, oh, I'm going to save money, I don't have to pay out, I can do it myself, but then all of these things that could have been prevented, they're not. Then you have to respond to all of these 30 questions. Then you get an additional 6 months. Then you get mad. Then you blame the government. Then you get mad again. And then you submit it again and you get more feedback. And before you know it, it's almost 3 years. And you're like, I tried. And we all try, but let's try and succeed. And that's what this channel is about, helping you succeed. So this is that chance and this opportunity to not be penny wise, pound foolish, but to invest if you're interested, for instance, in the 8A or any other set aside, so that you get it and not be in a situation of, oh man, I still got to make changes. Just some of my thoughts on this. I'm also curious, Mark, when it comes to the different types of businesses, because some may think like, oh, maybe, he's working with businesses that are already doing millions of dollars or have all these people, it's just me. Should somebody who they're an entrepreneur, but it's just them, are they also a good candidate for the 8A program or any of the other programs?
I see it all in terms of applicants going after, whether it be 8A or HubZone or any of it. Really what's important is the desire to do federal work more than the size of the company. I have, let's say we do 400 applications a year between the various certifications and GSA contracts. I may have, 100 of those companies be one-person companies. That's common. See it all the time. And then, or they're doing 200,000 a year in revenue or 150,000 a year in revenue. If I had to say what a typical app is, it's probably a company with 2 or 3 employees. That's probably the average app. When I have a client come in that's already doing 2 or 3 million a year, that's pretty rare. That might be in the 5% of the apps that we see are companies that are already at that level of success. Typically, we're seeing that client that's in that $500,000 or so in revenue, maybe a little more, and they're making that step to jump into federal contracting. That's kind of a typical one. But whether you're already at 10 million, it's never too late to start doing federal contracting. In most cases, it's going to help any business out. The government procures just about everything. I can't think of something off my head where somebody calls in and says, no, well, okay, home remodeling. I don't see much of that. Call it construction, but not home remodeling. So if somebody calls me up and they're a bathroom person, they remodel bathrooms, they only do residential, I'd say no, but just about everything else in the government procures. So it's an enormous amount of opportunity out there. And that's why we see companies from all sizes, really taking advantage of the certifications and the contracts.
And I can see why. I mean, given that you have 8A firms making, on average, or bringing in revenue-wise $9 million. I mean, even just going from maybe 100,000 to 600,000 is life-changing for many people. And of course, 9 million, or the company where you did the renewal of 30 plus million. I mean, it just shows again, not only does the government buy so many things, but the sky's the limit. Do you ever have those companies who graduate, who get, too big per se, and they're no longer eligible?
Absolutely. I have that. I have a client that I got certified about 4 years ago now, and it was, the 2 guys making a computer program, essentially. I don't remember the revenue, but less than $500,000, significantly less. Let's say 200,000-300,000. So not important. Very small company. But they got 8A certified. It got an opportunity to go into 2 different agencies, and they sold that business last year for a little over $22 million. Both are retired now. And so they were only in the program a little over 3 years, and got into 2 agencies, did very well in those 2 agencies, and are now on the beach. So I definitely see that. The company I told you about before that did 36 million last year, when they got certified about 5 years ago, that's a small construction firm, they were doing less than $500,000 a year. So to see that kind of growth, those are, of course, success stories. Those are companies in the top 20% or so of 8A. But, I see it all the time. Half the firms that I work with, by the time they're in their 4th or 5th year, are typically, at that 6-7 million or more mark in federal contracting. It's very doable, very realistic.
And do you find that it's industry specific? Is it that it tends to be those in IT, construction, or?
Yeah, I do. It does. And we're for a minute, I'm just going to talk about 8A, but because it does vary a little bit across the other certifications. But in 8A, you see it very dominant in professional services, mostly IT, and in construction. So construction's roughly 40% of all 8A dollars, and then IT is like right around that, another 40% or so. And I'm going to be off 5% or something, but IT and construction are both massive. And then you have professional services right there. It's another 10% or so. And that can be, all sorts of different consulting services and trainings, that kind of thing. Then you get down into staffing and janitorial and some others. Those are all, 3, 4, 5%. We're still talking billions of dollars a year. And then into, 100 other small NACE codes. But definitely if you're in IT or construction, the 8A dominates in those areas, and it's a really great fit. Not to say it's not great for everyone. I have a client did a food distribution business a couple years ago, and the guy's literally a one person working out of his house, doing $200,000 or $300,000 a year, and selling food. And he gets 8A in this industry where when we're applying, the SBA is challenging us, do we procure this service in the 8A program? Because he's one of like 2 or 3 8A companies in the country that does this. Anyway, 5 years later, he's doing $10 million a year through the program. So you see it, it can be very successful for you, whether you're super niche or if you're in IT or construction. When you're super niche, you're going to be probably the only 8A supplier there is, which puts you in a great spot. And sometimes it doesn't. I mean, sometimes you're the only 8A supplier and they don't procure it. So not saying it's the silver bullet if you're in a really unique service, but it can be, and I see it work out that way for companies regularly, as well as the construction and IT side. HubZone does merit a mention because it is very dominant in janitorial, staffing, and facilities maintenance. Now, and that's probably between those 3 areas, you're probably half of all HubZone contracts. So, if you're in one of those areas, that would probably be the first cert I'd look at 8A, of course, if you can get it, but I would make the effort to move to be in a HubZone to qualify for that if I'm in one of those industries. Woman-owned and veteran-owned are really across, I'm going to say they're much more even across all your industries. But veteran-owned is very, very preferred by the VA. So when you offer a product or service that the VA uses, that's, that veteran certification is a really great tool to have. I have quite a few veteran-owned clients that only work with the VA, and they're not 8A, this isn't relationship-based. I mean, it is, of course, to some degree, but they're having to low bid everything. But, getting in, if you're a veteran, providing a service that a hospital would procure, the VA is a terrific. It's the only place I'd be focused, really, if I had the veteran certification. All right.
This is awesome because I've found the same to be true because, for instance, there's an interview on my channel with Jerry. He's service disabled. He does about $10 million a year, all with the VA. And this is just so vital because, again, we're encouraged. Get a certification, And what you have done is laid out the path. You have provided the ways to literally like the app Waze, like you're in the car, like to get the certification. And you've provided the appropriate route based on industry, kind of what you're interested in, that understanding of it takes networking. You're not just going to get contracts. And I am just so beyond grateful for this because this topic continues to come up again and again. And I, again, know what the 8A will do for your life and how it just changes so many things. But at the same time, it may not be for everyone, and you may not qualify, and that's why they need an expert like you. So Mark, I was so grateful for you to be here, and please share, how can they get in contact with you? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
easy8a.com. That's the 2 letters, EZ, easy8a.com. But you go on there, we have all our various products and services on there. We do have a GSA website as well, which is gsaschedulecontract.com, but all that information is also on the Easy8A site. So easy8a.com will get you all the information on us.
Which is awesome. And I also just want to add that Mark is not just some average, hey, I have a company selling you a service to apply for one of these set-asides. As he said, he is an SBA subject matter expert for them. This is huge. So go to the website, connect, make sure you comment, hit the notification button, y'all, share, like. There's so many gems here, I already know. And you know I brought him here because you guys know already that everything is possible. And that's why he's here, because that's what happened to me. And I'm so grateful again. And tell them one more time where to go, which websites to go to.
Go to easy8a.com.
Yes, go to E8A. Please do that. And again, comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification button. And I adore each and every one of you because y'all know everything is possible. Take care, everyone.